Okay, so this is there was a video voicemail that was sent from Andy Cohen to Brandi Glanville. This was from 2022. Andy, clearly inebriated, slurring his words. He's at a Bravo event in the south of France, and he's alongside fellow Bravo star Below Decks, Kate Chastain. And they send Brandi, who's also at a Bravo event in LA, this really explicit message. Andy is saying, hey, Brandi, we're going to have sex later. We're going to be thinking about you.
Welcome to the Hollywood Raw YouTube page, guys. We're happy to have you here. Make sure you like, subscribe, leave us comments, do all the stuff.
What are you waiting for? Let's go. I got a drug addiction to feed.
Welcome to the Hollywood Raw podcast. Today's episode is, I think people are going to be like, whoa. I think at the end of today's episode, you're just like, oh my God. I'm shocked to kind of hear this stuff. Maybe you won't be shocked because it's not the first time we heard these stories regarding Andy Cohen. My name is Adam Glyn. Over there is Dax Holt. We have our friend today on the podcast, Jessica Finn from the U.S. Sun, one of the biggest entertainment news sites in the world. Jessica's a senior reporter who did an expose on Andy Cohen and a big story regarding him, and she's going to give us all the whole lowdown of what happened with Andy Cohen, what's going on there, and this video that came out regarding Brandy Glanville, which we're going to get very into. Dax, are you excited for this?
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I think the story broke yesterday, immediately got a lot of attention. It's Andy Cohen looking inebriated. Is that how you say it? Did I say that
Something
right?
Like that. Yeah.
Inebriated. So he looks drunk. How about that? And sending kind of sexually explicit messages to Brandy. But yeah, the story got a lot of traction. So we wanted to have Jess on to really talk about it because she was the one behind this whole thing. And break it all down for us. Tell us exactly what happened. She had a lot of conversations with Brandy, how Brandy's doing, what Brandy's up to next, why she's talking about. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of questions we have. So yes, I'm excited to have Jess on. She's awesome. We have known her for years and years and years. She is just such a fun person to have on the podcast.
You know what I always have questions for is how do people make money? Constantly in New York City, even in LA, I'll be walking around in the middle of the day and people are just having lunch on a Tuesday at 11 or 2 p.m. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Don't you guys work? And I say that because I just saw photos of Alicia Silverstone. She was in the news because she was eating a poisonous fruit. And I'm like, oh, how does Alicia Silverstone afford life these days? Clueless was a big movie 25 years ago. She did one of the Batman movies years ago, a long time ago. But I'm just so curious, like, how do people make money?
Yeah, at this point.
You made money back like 25 years ago, but the money's changed. Like, how do you continue to make money?
Yeah, because your money runs out after a while. Clueless was a big movie, but that doesn't mean you're going to get residual. You'll get residuals, but those residuals go down every year. We've talked to people. We've literally talked to actors or screenwriters and all of them, and the money starts to go down year after year. So you can't afford to just live off one or two movies for the rest of your life. So
yeah, I mean, Alicia Silverstone, she's done some parts in the last few years. I mean, she's been working, but not like anything crazy, nothing like significant. But I guess these roles that she's done have been enough money to kind of pay her bills. I'm just curious what her cost of life are. Like, how much are her bills? How much does she pay for her mortgage? How much does she pay for her kids if they go to public school or they go to private school? Does she only grocery shop at Whole Foods? Like, I don't know how you afford life. Life is so expensive.
Well, here's one thing though. Maybe she bought her house outright when she was making crazy money. So think about it. If you don't have to pay for your house and your house is paid off and now you're just paying for the other stuff, that's pretty helpful. I like how we're just speculating. I have no idea what her financial situation is.
Yeah,
I'm just curious.
Yeah, does Silverstone have a mortgage or does she pay off her mortgage? And also, is paying off your mortgage as quick as possible the best investment? I don't know. Maybe just take some weight off your shoulders. But before we get to Jessica Finn of the U.S. Before we get to Jessica Finn of the U.S. Sun, Dax and I always take time We call each other midweek and we say, hey, you want to go over some reviews? And we sit there and we read reviews to each other like it's poetry. We're like, this person said, and we read it like it's like, just very well-spoken words. Dax, do you have a review ready for us?
Oh, I've got one. Buckle up, Adam. All right, this one is from Liz W. in Austin. It's a 5-star. Worlds Collide. She said, really tempted to save my review for 1,000, but $9.98 will have to do. Found Hollywood Raw. By the way, we were giving away shout outs for our 1,000th review. We did that, but found Hollywood Raw when you were guests on Dumois, and couldn't believe I have found my 2 favorites from the days of watching TMZ. My worlds collided. I'm hooked. You've never been boring, and your algorithm analysis is spot on. The topics are exactly what I'm looking for. We've come full circle with the Dumois episode today. Thanks for every episode and the amount of work that goes into production in both of your busy schedules. Some of my favorite high-quality content. Liz W. in Austin.
It's a great review.
That is.
And
I love that she found us on Dumois, and then we had a Dumois on ours, so I love it.
Yeah, that's a great review. All right. Our scandalous episode today, Dax, tell us about our guest.
Oh, our guest is Jess Finn, senior reporter at the U.S. Sun, someone that you guys know if you've been listening to our podcast. She has been on numerous times talking about her Wendy Williams stories, talking about any big story. She's co-hosted episodes for us. She is definitely a pal of the Hollywood Raw podcast. Jess, welcome back.
Jessica Finn with the story of the week. I mean, we're doing this podcast, Jessica. I'm really nervous if Andy Cohen ever talks to us again. So
he comes on all the time, so it's going to be awkward when he doesn't come back.
But this is a insane story, Jessica. But you broke the story at the U.S. Sun. How long have you been working on this story? Obviously, with a story like this, you need to do your due diligence as a reporter, as a journalist. You need to make sure that everything is covered. How long were you working on the story for?
I've been working on it for about a month. I've always been interested in the Bravo world and what Andy Cohen and how Andy Cohen pulls the strings for these women's lives. But this story, I've been working on this story specifically and the stories that we're going to be releasing throughout the week for about a month now. And it's been definitely a labor of love, and it's been a lot. I'm glad that it's finally getting to get its day.
So give us a brief rundown of the story that you broke on Tuesday morning, because we gave a little intro about it. We teased it during our intro to the podcast and having you on, but tell us a little bit, for someone who hasn't read the story yet, the big bullet points of it.
Okay, so this is there was a video voicemail that was sent from Andy Cohen to Brandi Glanville. This was from 2022. Andy, clearly inebriated, slurring his words. He's at a Bravo event in the south of France, and he's alongside fellow Bravo star Below Decks, Kate Chastain. And they send Brandi, who's also at a Bravo event in LA, this really explicit message. Andy is saying, hey, Brandi, we're going to have sex later. We're going to be thinking about you. And Kate goes, and then Andy suggests, if you're around in like 90 minutes or 2 hours, do you want to FaceTime and you can watch it? And Kate Chastain goes, yeah, so like essentially a threesome. And they're just they're both totally clearly hammered. They're both totally slurring their words. And it's this really strange thing, because as they're talking and as they're sending this really vulgar message, you see NBC Universal signage right behind them. So they're like very much clearly at a work event. Meanwhile, they're sending this to Brandi, who's very much at her own work event promoting the Ultimate Girls Trip in LA. And so basically, Brandi gets this message. She's in the chair getting her hair done for this work event, and she's stunned. She's startled. She said that she was mortified by it. And that she couldn't close the message fast enough. And so we talked a little bit about this and other things that we're publishing throughout the week with Brandi. And it seems like this is like it seems like since the beginning, this has been kind of the way that Andy has looked at his relationship with Brandi. So it's definitely an eye-opening look at how Andy treats his employees, his talent. It's an interesting look at that specifically.
So, I mean, just as the backstory. So I want to play both sides a little bit. You know, we're seeing the video message. Were you able to see, or do we know a little bit of their relationship? You know, was the video message was it a weird context? Like, was it taken out of context? I mean, for Andy's sake, or because you can see this video just as is. I mean, it's a pretty crazy video. However, I don't know what the conversation was back and forth beforehand that maybe kind of led to this video, or is this completely out of the blue? Andy just sends Brandi this video and she's like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah. Okay. So in our conversations with Brandi, she very much has insisted that her and Andy are not friends. They've never hung out socially. They've never gotten drinks together. This is very much an employer-employee relationship. She said she worked for Bravo for 13 years and this was her boss and she looked at it like a job. The thing that's interesting and makes this different, it's not because she's on TV that makes it different. It's that she knew that if she didn't play along with the things that Andy said to her, she wouldn't work anymore. She would be fired like immediately. You know, one of the things she said was that, you know, if I ever called out and said, hey, what you just said is disgusting or F off, she's like, I'd be fired. I would be dead in the water. I would never work again. And this was her only source. This was her main source of income immediately after her split from Eddie Cibrian. She'd never had a job before Eddie. Eddie took care of her. And she didn't have a college education. So this was her income. This was how she's a single mother. This is how she put food on the table. So whenever Andy would reach out to her and be inappropriate, Brandi played along. And so in this instance, specifically with this video, this was sent to Brandi out of the blue. From my understanding, there was no context before it that made sense for this video to be sent. I'm not sure what the conversation between Andy and Kate Chastain was when they decided to send this video. I can't even fathom what was going through their minds. Like, oh, let's send this video to Brandi. It's funny. I don't know how this video came about in the first place, but this was sent to Brandi out of the blue. Now, Brandi's response wasn't great. Brandi also, you know, sent a really vulgar response. I think she said something to the effect of, I love you two. You're my two favorite people. I love that C word, referring to Kate. If you guys do have sex, you're going to want me because I have a magic pussy. So Brandi didn't help herself in this situation. However, she really did emphasize to me multiple times that she had to match his energy or she knew that she wasn't going to keep getting work. And it makes sense, right? If somebody's gross to you and you're relying on them for a paycheck, what else are you supposed to do? You know? So that's kind of what Brandi did for the entirety of her Bravo career, it sounds like, was just play ball because she knew that he was holding the purse strings, you know, and holding her next paycheck.
So the only thing I would say is when I first watched this, obviously it's inappropriate for any employer to be talking to his employee like that. The only other thing that I would say is that this is a gay man talking about having sex with a woman. So then I go, clearly this is more of a joke or he's having fun being playful. And then I think, I just don't know their relationship. When I look at Brandi, and we've had her on, and I actually truly enjoyed Brandi coming on the podcast. She was one of our funnest guests. We had a great time with her. She is a fun woman, and the way she puts her personality out there for the masses, she seems like she would be someone who is down to joke and have a good time and laugh. And maybe I misunderstand her personality, but that's who I think she is. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see that conversation go back and forth between them. And I think about myself and my group text or my conversations with Adam, that if you take one video out of our conversation chain, I could look really bad. He could look really bad. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just curious if over time that friendship has deteriorated. And so now it's looking back, it's gross. That makes sense.
So Brandi very much insists that she and Andy did not have a friendship, that they've never hung out socially, that she'd fly into New York to tape Watch What Happens Live. They didn't go for drinks afterwards. This is somebody who she says she has never once seen him in a social situation outside of work. And so any of these messages and you know, videos and texts and emails that he has sent her over the years, these have been very much in work context, just like the situation this was in. He was at a work event, she was at a work event. So yeah, she's been very much, this is just not, we don't have a friendship. This has always been my boss.
Does it, and I don't know the law or anything like that, because I know that they had investigated, because Brandy and Liam McSweeney had both, put out some allegations towards him, which he was cleared after they did an investigation. My question is that, did they dive deeper, and because she matched his energy, does that hurt her case?
First of all, so Leah has sued.
Yep.
Brandy has yet to file suit, but tells us that she is filing. Okay. I don't know if that is going to hurt her case ultimately. I think that when she explains it, and when we were talking and in the interview, it really does make sense. And she's like, what else am I supposed to do? Like, how else am I supposed to respond? He's offering me a chance to work. And in 2022, the context is really interesting. I remember being at BravoCon and seeing a really desperate Brandy on the stage at BravoCon. And I know that she was really desperately trying to get back on the Housewives. And I think that that's where she very much was in this year that this video was sent. And she knew that she had to keep playing along, or else she wasn't going to keep getting work at Bravo.
Yeah.
How about, so when you do a story like this, obviously, Jess, you have to reach out to Andy, to Bravo for comments. What did Kate have to say regarding this video? Did you reach out to her reps at all, or her, and what was there any response? We
reached out to Kate. We actually reached out to her attorneys, and we haven't heard back.
Right.
I think that this is probably something that she's really embarrassed about. From what I understand, she has expressed that she was not in her clear mind when it was done, when the video was recorded. I wouldn't go as far to say that she's embarrassed, but I'm assuming she probably is just hoping it goes away.
Yeah. And then you obviously reached out to Andy. Did you get a response there? And how do you know, like, when they don't respond, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, we got we caught up with Bravo yesterday, and they basically declined to comment for the story. I'm not going to get into that conversation because, but yeah, for their own reasons, they didn't think that this was important enough to comment on. And it's kind of surprising because the information in the story that we put out Wednesday is just as damning, in my opinion, as the video itself. So
I want to get into that. This wasn't the only thing that you kind of, reported on with Andy, not just this video message to Brandy. There was also text messages involved, suggesting that she sleep with fellow Bravo stars. Is that correct?
Yeah. So again, a lot of these, first of all, it sounds like Brandy has a trove of messages from Andy. Like, it doesn't seem like the bulk of what we've been granted access to are from 2022, but it sounds like she's been dealing with vulgar messages for over a decade. So the snippets that we have, one of the messages from Andy is at the conclusion of BravoCon in 2022, the BravoCon that I was there and saw a very desperate looking Brandy on stage. Andy at the end of the weekend suggested that she sleep with Southern Charm's Austin Kroll. And this is a text message that he sent to her. He's like, I really wish you had hooked up with Austin. And Brandy kind of responds like, oh, he already DM'd me 4 times, but his girl was with him. And, maybe I have to go to Charleston. She kind of says this. I mean, to me, her response was like, okay, Andy, whatever. And then Andy sent another message. And this is within 24 hours and said, I really wish you had hooked up with my stage manager. What boss sends somebody messages saying, hey, I wish you had slept with these 2 employees of mine. Yeah. And so Brandy's take on that was that, again, like we've mentioned before, Andy is a gay man. From Brandy's perspective, she believes that Andy's been asking her about men that she slept with for years, mind you. This is it sounds like there's a trove of Andy asking her about who she sleeping with and their penis size over the years, because these are men that Andy doesn't really have access to because they're typically straight men. So Brandi, in one of the quotes from her, which is kind of insane, but she said she felt like his little sex worker. Like he was always pumping her for information about her own sex life, because these are men that he can't get typically. That's like why she believes that he suggested she sleep with the stage manager. This is probably somebody that Andy has a thing for and wants to know what he's like in the sack, and that's why he's pressuring Brandi to go sleep with him. And then there's another text message in which Andy asks Brandi to tell him about anything she's heard about his own sex life. And Brandi's response is very straightforward and kind of cool. She's like, I only know your ex-boyfriend, Marco. That's the only person I know. I don't know everything about your sex life. And in our conversation, she's like, I don't want to know about his sex life. Like, who does he think he is? Why should I know all about all the people that he's screwing? It's not like, that's just not normal behavior. That's not something a boss should be asking me about. I shouldn't have to find out who he's screwing and then tell him about what they think about his sex. Like, it's weird. And he has this God complex where you should know everything about me. You should know everybody I'm screwing. And then there's this other email that was sent from Andy's NBC Universal email. And this was sent in 2013. And it's Brandi says that Andy is asking about Eddie Cibrian's penis size. It's this email after she had taped Watch What Happens Live. It's the next day. It's a full day later. They talked about Eddie as a lover on the show the night before, and Andy emails her. So Eddie was a 9! With 9 in capital letters. And Brandi said that it was in that moment that she knew that this was going to be their relationship, that this was going to be how her boss was going to talk to her. And it kind of just set the tone for the rest of her career at Bravo.
Wow. Do you know did she mention that he would send these type of text messages to other housewives, or she was kind of the only one on the receiving end of these types of text messages?
She very much believes that she is definitely on the outskirts of the housewives that Andy would treat like this. She says that because of her socioeconomic status, because she's a single mother, because she's not independently wealthy like Lisa Vanderpump and Kyle Richards and everybody else on the show, all the other women on the show that have these big bank accounts, that she feels that Andy has treated her disrespectfully and extremely poorly over the years, because he knows that she's reliant on the paycheck. So he can get away with much more, and production can ask so much more of her, so much more extreme and outrageous behavior of her, because she's going to do it, because she's banking on that next paycheck. And she knows that she's not going to keep getting the work if she doesn't do what they ask of her. The bad behavior gets rewarded with more work for her. The other housewives don't really have to do as much. They're there to show the luxury of it. They're there to promote that luxury that is the Housewives franchise.
Yeah.
So how is Brandi dealing with all this?
Yeah, she's a mess. She has stress-induced and I'm going to say this wrong, stress-induced edema. Her face swells up. She gets big puffs all over her face, and it just kind of moves around. She had such a bad headache that we had to wrap up our interview. I mean, we were talking for quite some time, but she just had to get off. I could see when we'd take a break, she'd just be rubbing her head. I mean, the woman's clearly in really poor health at this point. I think the stress of the Caroline Manzo lawsuit, not the Caroline Manzo lawsuit, but the situation with Caroline Manzo has really destroyed her financially. She's been unable to work since that happened, after Caroline accused her of sexual abuse while filming. And she says she's financially in ruins right now. She hasn't worked since the Manzo incident. She's going through her savings, and her health is failing. And she looks like a shell of her former self. To see the interview, you can tell she's just not the same Brandi.
Yeah.
What does someone like Brandi do to get work at this point? Because Adam and I talk about this all the time. When you're famous in Hollywood and then you run out of money, there's nothing worse, because you don't want to go work at a normal job because everyone recognizes you, but sometimes you have to do that. And she may have to enter the real workforce at this point, because people aren't hiring her, unfortunately. And she's a great reality star because she doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the best things about Brandi is that I'm surprised that, honestly, listening to this, what's going through my head is everyone knows Brandi doesn't care. She will air out all dirty laundry. She has no qualms about, what makes her look bad, what makes other people look bad. She'll just say it. So I am kind of surprised that Andy would say all these things, knowing at the end of the day, Brandi doesn't give a fuck, and she's going to talk about it, if she wants to.
Yeah. 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 I mean, here's the thing, like, because of the Manzo incident specifically, she really lost out on a lot of work. She was labeled a sexual predator. She had jobs. She told me that she had jobs lined up outside of the Housewives and outside of the Ultimate Girls Trip stuff that got pulled out from under her. The people didn't want to work with her because she was suddenly labeled a sexual predator. And so that really screwed her up. I mean, I don't know what she's going to do. I think she's still hoping to eventually make some kind of redemption on this. And what's screwed up is the Manzo incident happened. I'll say the wrong year, but it happened after 2022. I think it happened in 2023. Yeah, it must have happened in 2023. Brandi gets railroaded in the press. Caroline from, her side of the story gets out, and Brandi forced her tongue down my throat, and all of these things came out in the press. And Brandi got labeled a sexual predator. And from my conversations with her, she said that Bravo the whole time was like, just don't say anything. It's going to be fine. It's going to go away. You'll be fine. That's how they advised her. And she did. She didn't say anything. And then she got railroaded. Okay. And Bravo never said anything to back her up. Now Manzo ends up suing Bravo and suing NBC and doesn't sue Brandi, right? So Manzo sues all of the companies, doesn't bother to sue the alleged perpetrator, though, and basically says, well, you guys had made her you guys basically encouraged bad behavior by her, and so it's on you that I feel like I was violated. In that lawsuit, a Shed producer, the Shed is the production company that does the Housewives, a Shed producer, Lisa Shannon, said, we spoke to Manzo right after the incident, and she told us that she didn't feel like she was sexually assaulted, but she did feel she was disrespected. And this comes out a whole year after Brandi's career was destroyed. So Brandi's really upset about that. Like, this is, she gave her life, she put her life on display for Bravo for over a decade. And then they just left her totally high and dry after the Manzo incident. And then only a year after, and in a lawsuit after Caroline sues, does a Shed producer come forward and say, we saw and we spoke to Caroline, it wasn't sexual assault. She told us it wasn't sexual assault. She said she just felt disrespected. Like, how do you do that to her? And so now this woman has this label of sexual predator, and it doesn't go away. And like, people reported on this producer's comments in the lawsuit, but like, it just didn't go anywhere because now the train is, the horse is out of the barn, so to speak. So
what's she gonna do about it? Is she gonna sue? What is she gonna do?
Yeah, she says she's gonna sue. I mean, it sounds like she's very much been in touch with her attorneys. She's been very much in touch with her attorneys in the last couple of weeks. I don't have an exact timeline for it, but she swears she's suing.
So when you sue,
that's expensive too.
Expensive. I guess you have to find a law firm that's going to just say, "Hey, we'll do it pro bono. We'll just take a 33% of the winnings." But I mean, do you know, Jess? And again, Dax, you might know this. I don't know. You sue, but what do you sue for? Is it just
sexual harassment? Sexual
harassment work.
Yeah, that's what she's suing. She knows this much. She's suing Andy for sexual harassment. I asked her if she was going to be suing these companies, NBC Universal, et cetera, Shed Production, and she wasn't sure yet. But Andy Cohen's definitely like the main defendant.
I want to ask you, Jess, I want to ask you a question, but I don't know if this is too inside baseball, and let me know if it is. You broke the story. You have a relationship with Brandi. Was she trying to find an outlet, a person, a trusted source to put out this story? I'm not going to say to control the narrative, but she just wanted, you obviously are a journalist with a long experience of doing this type of stuff. You've broken tons of stories, but it was just part of, I don't want to say her strategy. It's definitely not part of her strategy, but she was like, hey, I need to get this story out there before the lawsuit comes. Mm-hmm. I need to talk to someone. How did it kind of fall in your hands?
Yeah, I mean, I think that she was definitely trying to find, the right outlet for this. It wasn't, it sounds like she had been looking for the right outlet for a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear from Brandi again soon. But yeah, it came to me through somebody that I've worked with for many, many, many years. And then through another person I've worked with for many, many, many years. But yeah, she was definitely looking to try and get her take on it before filing the lawsuit. She was also concerned that, that her attorneys would tell her to shut up and not do anything. So I think she really felt the need to get her story out there before filing.
And what would she say to people that are saying, well, is this just a money grab? Like, you're acknowledging that you've got no work, you've got nothing you can do. What would she say to people that are like, oh, you're just trying to get a paycheck?
She is very much like, I want everyone to know what a horrible boss Andy Cohen is. Like, this is, I think, beyond what Brandi this is beyond just Brandi, right? I mean, like, Leah McSweeney has a problem with Andy. Carolyn Manzo has a problem with Bravo. Bethany Frankel obviously has her own issues with Bravo. I think this is really kind of a bigger picture story, and I think that anybody saying, well, Brandi's just going for a money grab is really missing the point. It should be, why is Andy Cohen getting away with what he gets away with? And why does everybody keep allowing it to happen? And why is Bravo such a toxic workplace for their talent? I think that's really the story here. You can dismiss Brandi all you want, but there's obviously something happening, and it's problematic.
I want to play with both of you guys. Crisis PR strategy. This story breaks out. Obviously, if you hear these dings, it's my phone going off from people sending me this story, Jess. I'm not even joking. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe this. This is insane. I'm curious about, like, if you guys are Bravo, if you're Andy Cohen, what do you do to kind of, I don't want to say fix this, but to kind of answer back to the allegations and the story, the videos out there? I mean, it's the allegations, the possible lawsuit. What do you do? And do you think that any of you guys think that Andy could possibly lose his job from this?
I don't know what it's going to take for him to lose his job. Like, this guy he basically talks about having sex with his bartenders that he hires for Watch What Happens Live. This guy has admitted to having sex with his employees. Like, there's a lot of other rumors of things he's done with his employees, which I'm not going to get into yet because I would have to clear it with legal first. But, I don't know what it's going to take for this guy for people to be like, you know what, that is a step too far. And I think that the take that Bravo is going to do with this Brandi story is they're going to just try and make her, she's not credible. This is Brandi being Brandi. She's crazy. That's what they're just going to try and discredit her and railroad her and, shoo it aside. I think in their response, it was very flip. It's like, she's not credible. We're not worried about this. But, like, at the end of the day, how many people are going to have to come forward before this guy actually sees some sort of repercussions for, like, clearly problematic behavior?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it would take a huge star with an endless bank account, because unfortunately, Brandi's going up against Bravo and Andy Cohen, and that is a David versus Goliath type situation. Mm-hmm. And she would need someone in her corner, like a Vanderpump or someone else that says, yes, what's going on in there is inappropriate, and I've got the funds to keep this lawsuit going. And that's, honestly, that's what it would take.
Yeah.
Jess, I want to change things up just a little bit. I'm curious about Wendy Williams. You broke the story about Wendy Williams a while back about where she's at, what's going on there. How is Wendy Williams doing? We haven't heard from her lately.
Oh man, I'm dying. I have a big story that I'm working on that nobody has this information. Hopefully I'll have some stuff to say about a little bit more about her situation sometime in September. Wendy sounds like she is very much still away where she's been. I heard a rumor that she sometimes calls people, but I don't even know if that's really legit. Because I know that she hasn't spoken to her best friend Regina, which is really weird. But somebody told me that she sometimes randomly reaches out to some people here in New York TV news. But I think everything's status quo. I hate to think that the next thing that we're going to hear is she died. But I don't know. I don't understand how this woman's still out of the public life. Her son was in New York last week. I don't know if he was here for maybe anything pertaining to the guardianship. It was unusual for him to be here. I'm still working on it. I hope to have some more soon.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Jessica Finn, she is crushing it over there at the U.S. Sun. She is she's our pit bull of a journalist here at the Hollywood Raw. Jessica Finn from the U.S. Sun. If you want to see more stories from Jess, check out the U.S. Sun. She's doing an awesome job there as a senior reporter. She's a friend. She's a pal. She co-hosts the Raw Rundown with us sometimes. So, Jessica, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, guys.
Dude, she was great.
She was great.
Like, there's rarely do I feel like we find actual reporters in Hollywood still. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many people that just break little stories here and there, but not a lot of people are doing these like deep dives and taking weeks to like really fish out a story. And that's what Jess does, and that's why I think we love having her on so much. And she's
great. I mean, honestly, lately in the entertainment news world, it's just a rush to push enter, and they're taking an Instagram video or something on Instagram, and they're rushing to post it as soon as possible, and that's journalism. And yes, a lot of stories are broken over Instagram, but it's, these pieces take time and they take their due diligence, and it's based on relationships, which she has. And we're fortunate we have a good relationship with Jess and hear the story straight from the source. So thanks, Jess, for coming on and check out our stories on the U.S. Sun. Let me get your unfiltered reaction, by the way. What is your thought? Do you think Andy's a creep? Do you think that he is someone that thought he had a different relationship? Do you think Brandi is trying to make money? I want to know, like, full thought on this whole situation. My thought is this. I just recently listened to an incredible interview with Armie Hammer on the Bill Maher Club Random podcast.
Okay.
And I thought Armie Hammer had a situation where he was with some women. He, based on the podcast, he seemed to be very honest and said, yeah, did I do some things that were definitely morally wrong? 100%. Did I do anything legally wrong? Absolutely not. And he said, based on the messages I sent, because there's all these things that Armie Hammer, I'm into cannibalism, I'm into all these crazy things. He's like, not really. He was like, we're role playing, it's sort of sexual, it's fantasy, but it was also these text messages were taken out of context and you didn't see the other side. So to me, I'm all about perspectives, and to hear Armie Hammer's perspective of all this really kind of opened me up to like, okay, there's two sides to every story. Now, I've met Andy a ton of times. Am I friends with Andy Cohen? Absolutely not. Have I met him? Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even say I'm acquaintance with him. I've got to talk to him. He's been very nice to me. I've been very nice to him back. The way it sounds to me was, I think possibly, and again, I'm just saying from the outside looking in, I don't know internally what was going on, but maybe he thought they had a different type of relationship. It was a friendship, and both sides were, and I understand where Brandi, I don't want to go to victim shaming by any means, but I think Andy may have thought they had a different type of relationship. It was more of on a friend level and they could kind of have fun with each other. And he was more of, he had a different sense of humor, and he thought Brandi was on that level. On the other hand is Brandi also knew that he was a boss, and she had to kind of go along with things because he's a big voice there.
Screwed up.
It's a very tricky relationship. And I understand her side as well. Like, it's, she's there where she always has to kind of make the boss happy and kind of please him and be entertaining and be on, and made her feel like her back was against the wall. So I understand. I 1000% understand Brandi's side. We only know Brandi's side right now. As far as Andy goes, from the outside looking in, it looks like to me he thought they had a different type of relationship.
And Andy, you're more than welcome to come on the Hollywood Raw podcast and give us your perspective, because like Adam said, we love perspectives. We want to hear from the other side. Do I think you'll do that? Nah. No. I think that this is a story that Andy would be like, let it die away. Don't give it any more fuel to the fire.
We'll see if the story dies. That's going to be the good question. I know Jess has been working on a bunch of stories regarding this story. It's not just one story. It's not just two stories. There's a bunch of stories, and they have the proof. They have the messages. They have the videos. So I don't know how you dispute that. But again, there's also stuff that could be taken out of context. I'm not victim shamed by any means. We'll see how the story plays out. We'll see how Andy Cohen responds. Thank you guys for watching. If you're watching on Red Coral, check us out on Red Coral. They have a great algorithm where they just take care of us. They've been really good to us. It's a really good team over there at Red Coral. It's a really cool streaming site. They got tons of fun content. If you're watching on YouTube, like us, leave a review. And also you should leave a review on the podcast because it helps us out so much on the charts. Check out our private Facebook group called Off the Record. You should be in it. It's a really fun community. We talk to you. You talk to us. It's a way for us to kind of engage with each other. Follow me at Adam Glyn. Follow Dax Holt at Dax Holt. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
What's up, guys? If you like that video, there's plenty more that came from.
Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell so we can just feed you all the goodness daily.
Hurry up. Come on, let's go.